Hello, I'm Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, framed by our Constitution, our government is based on a checks and balances system that only functions properly when the government abides by the Constitution's separation of powers. Under the separation of powers, only Congress can make laws, and the federal agencies of the executive branch are charged with carrying out those laws. The Supreme Court has upheld this, stating that Congress may not delegate its lawmaking responsibilities to a federal agency. So under this context, let's compare the two bills introduced to address the cattle industry's extremely serious problem, that of losing its most important price discovery market because beef packers have shifted large volumes of cattle out of the fed cattle cash market, which is also known as the spot market, and leaving that market much too thin to establish competitive prices for cattle. As we make this comparison, you can decide whether the bills embody our checks and balances system or whether they cross the line of Congress delegating its lawmaking responsibilities to a federal agency. Now, the first bill was introduced in 2020 by Senators Grassley and Tester, along with 10 additional co-sponsors. It's referred to as the 5014 bill or the Spot Market Protection Bill. Now, the second bill was introduced in 2021 by Senators Fischer and Wyden, along with 2 additional co-sponsors, and it's referred to as the Cattle Market Transparency Act. Now, the purpose of both bills is to restore competition in the cash cattle market, and both bills require cattle purchased in the cash market to be harvested within 14 days. And both bills also only apply to the largest of beef packers, those with more than one packing plant. But that's where their similarities end. The GrassleyTester bill requires each packer to purchase at least 50% of its fed cattle in the cash market each day. And individual states are expressly authorized to raise the minimum purchase requirement above the 50% level. And the minimum purchase volume applies specifically to the negotiated cash market. It does not apply to the negotiated grid market. Now, in contrast, the FischerWyden bill delegates to the U.S. Department of Agriculture the authority to set minimal purchase requirements on a region-by-region basis. And it allows the USDA to initially set those minimal purchase requirements as low as the average actual volumes purchased in the cash market during the previous 3 years. The minimum purchase volumes under the FischerWyden bill would be on a weekly basis, and the minimal volume would be calculated for both the negotiated cash market and the negotiated grid market. Now, the effective date of the minimum purchase requirements under the GrassleyTester bill would be as soon as the bill is signed into law. The FischerWyden bill gives the USDA up to 2 years to complete a rulemaking for establishing minimal purchase requirements. And further, the GrassleyTester bill does not allow cattle purchased from cattle producers who are affiliated with a packer to be counted toward the 50% minimum purchase requirement, while the FischerWyden bill would leave it up to the USDA to decide this issue. So the differences between the two bills are profound. And from a practical standpoint, the GrassleyTester bill makes law that can immediately recharge the negotiated cash market and bring it up to a level where competitive forces can take effect. The FischerWyden bill, on the other hand, authorizes the USDA to make law, allows the USDA to set the law at the same low levels our industry has suffered under during the previous 3 years, and would not be expected to be implemented for at least 2 more calf crops. If we look at other examples where Congress has delegated its lawmaking authority to the USDA, we can begin to weigh the risk associated with allowing the USDA to attempt to balance the interests of independent cattle producers with those of the largest of packers. Now remember, it was through the USDA rulemaking that the U.S. welcomed imported beef from countries where foot and mouth disease is known to exist, such as Namibia, Africa, and Brazil. It was also the USDA that set law in December to provide packers with safe havens, effectively insulating them from offering preferential contracts to their preferred feedlots and not offering such contracts to independent feeders. So without having to offer much in the way of commentary, I think most people will recognize that the factual differences between the GrassleyTester bill and the FischerWyden bill are sufficient for them to draw the accurate conclusion that the GrassleyTester bill represents swift and decisive corrective action to a very serious industry-wide problem, while the FischerWyden bill represents kicking the can down the road. With that, we hope you have a productive week. Please go to our website at r-cafusa.com to join with us so we can be strong enough to steer your industry towards a more profitable and prosperous future. Thank you and goodbye.